Hey everyone, Nubkeks here, and in today's video we're discussing the nerfs to Torghast. Massive nerfs just came in, hotfixed, just last night by Blizzard. I've gone in today and I've tested it out today. I did one of my layer 8 runs yesterday, I think, the day before, maybe, I think it was the day before. It's actually quite challenging. It was quite challenging, let me tell you. It was tough on the Shadow Priest. Yeah, I had a tough time in that one. I did beat it, but it was hard. I went in today in layer 8 after these nerfs, and well, I'll certainly splice in just like the final boss footage, which was a massive challenge before. I'll splice that into the end of the video and you can see just how massive these nerfs are. Let me know as well, have you tried Torghast earlier in the week or last week? How difficult were you finding it compared to how difficult you're finding it now? In fact, any layer is I'm sort of interested in, and sort of any level of player. Because, yeah, I think this is... Yeah, we'll discuss it first, and then I'll give you some opinions, right? Let's discuss what they've actually done. Right, the first major thing that they have done is a massive nerf to the health and damage of everything in Torghast. They've reduced them all by 6% at layer 1 and 26% at layer 8. So this means, in their words, that layer 8 is now roughly as difficult as layer 6 was prior to the change, with other layers' difficulty also being obviously reduced proportionately. That in itself is kind of insane, and you add this on top of the nerfs to individual enemies we're going to look at, and also the buffs to the powers that you're getting. And I think at this point, actually, doing layer 8 is now easier than doing layer 6 was just a couple of days ago. It's actually easier, which is a huge nerf. On top of the fact, of course, that, you know, right now our item level is pretty bad. We've got pretty bad items. So as you get more item level, this stuff's going to become even easier. It's going to become super, super easy. Let's look at these other nerfs, and then I'll give you a couple of opinions on this bit. First of all, the health for creatures in groups has been reduced by up to 25%. So just it's going to, you know, be faster to kill stuff in a group. Damage of all creatures has been reduced for 4 and 5 player groups by up to 20%. I very much suspect that this is going to mean that you can now go in with a 4 or 5 player group, and you can just go in as like 5 DPS or 4 DPS and be super chill. You're not going to need a healer. Probably not going to need a tank or anything like that. You could probably just go in and play whatever the heck you want and you'll be fine. I think that's the purpose of this change. Let me know if you've tried it. I obviously haven't, but yeah, I think that's probably how it works now. When the empowered enemy at the end of a floor is a spellcaster, they should now have a longer delay between their basic magic damage spells. And the purpose of this is to make it less punishing for specs that don't have short cooldowns on their kicks. I mean, this was definitely a bit of an issue before. You know, for me as Shadow Priest, I guess I had 3. I had like a Silence, which is a 45-second cooldown interrupt. Then I had a 45-second CD stun, or maybe it's 1 minute. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then a 1-minute fear. So it was definitely a pain for me, but you could get through. I'm sure other specs were even worse off. But yeah, I think that should make them a little less frustrating. And then also, I think this change is actually really nice. For all classes, major cooldowns will now reset when you transition to a new floor. Yeah, I think that's just really fun, actually, right? It's just going to up the flow of the thing. You can burn all of your CDs on that final boss, guarding that gate to each different floor, go into the next floor, and then just get right into blasting. You're not kind of going, oh, I just went up the floor, and there's an elite enemy in front of me. I guess I'll pull really slowly and blah, blah, blah. It's just go blast, just go full speed. I think that's cool. So what are my thoughts on this first little chunk here of nerfs? I have mixed feelings, you know. I actually do have mixed feelings. I think that for more experienced players, and especially players, you know, players that are doing any sort of Mythic Plus dungeons or any rated PvP or, you know, heroic raiding or anything, you know, like players that are into the game and are putting effort into really min-maxing and playing well, I think you're very quickly, if not even literally right now, you're going to find these weekly Torghast layer 8 runs to be exceptionally easy. And it's just going to be a case of blasting through them in, you know, maybe 10 minutes at a speed run. You know, I did this one in 20 minutes today, sort of taking my time. But yeah, as we get more gear, especially, it's just going to become an, you know, yeah, you're going to be doing this blindfolded. You're going to be watching Netflix and sort of half paying attention to WoW running around. It's kind of insane how much weaker this stuff feels. I've got mixed feelings about whether it's good or not. I certainly think that, you know, for a lot of players, especially more casual players, I think this is a great thing. Cause I have to imagine it must have been extremely frustrating to see these higher layers of Torghast unlocking. But then, you know, these are players that are not going to be spamming Mythic Plus dungeons and getting item level like with their guild or whatever, you know. they would have had a really tough time. Like, I'm sure that most people, a lot of people, would not have been able to beat layer 8 this week without these nerfs. And I'm sure that would have been a negative experience for sure. You're kind of going, huh, well, I'm already behind like these top end guys, but now this sort of weekly lockout soul ash thing, I'm even going to be falling behind on that and falling behind on legendaries, and that's going to feel pretty bad. So I do think that it's probably good that the soul ash stuff, this weekly Wings of Torghast, is easy enough that people can go through it and do it. Let's check out a couple of the other things that they've changed though. Anima powers and cells. The starting Anima cell in Torghast will now offer a stronger selection of Anima powers. For me, in my run, it gave me the 2 strongest priest powers, in my opinion, Shadow Priest ones. One giving me loads of bonus intellect, and the other one giving me stacking damage, Shadow or Death. So they're very fun. I thought that's good. You know, you start off your run with a really cool power. That's going to make it a lot more fun. Anima cells dropped by rare creatures within Torghast now always have at least 3 choices to choose from. Again, I think this is a nice change. You're just always likely to get a good power that fits your build. The chance for an Anima cell to drop from a creature on any given floor has been increased. This is actually pretty noticeable as well. There were lots more Anima cells just randomly dropping, whereas that almost never happened before, very, very rarely. So yeah, that's a pretty big deal. You're going to get a lot more powers. And then also, I don't know why this is in this section, but a natural power no longer provides immunity to crowd control effects at 10 stacks. This is on elite enemies in Torghast. As you're fighting them, they'll periodically get a stack of a natural power. It gives them 10% damage done and movement speed. Caps at 10 stacks, so that's double damage and move speed. That's just to sort of stop you cheesing those enemies and to make sure that you can actually legitimately get your way past them. But yeah, I think giving the immunity to crowd control, the 10 stacks, was kind of annoying, and I'm glad that's gone. That was just a bit frustrating. Again, it sort of affected more specs, some specs worse than it affected others, in terms of actually being able to, you know, finally secure a kill on those guys. Yeah, like something like a paladin could possibly, you know, pop divine shield and nuke something down at the end and be okay, whereas other specs that were reliant on crowd control to stay alive, suddenly they're immune. Good luck. So yeah, that's a weird one. For the enemies then, there's been a bunch of nerfs to these as well. One kind of crazy one is that the Tower Sentinel, they're the ones that were doing that big aura that was lowering your movement speed and haste. That used to go up to 25% reduced movement speed and haste. Now it only goes up to 10% reduced movement speed and haste. So they've nerfed these Tower Sentinels to oblivion, to be honest. You basically don't even notice that they're there anymore. So I think this is... I'm actually not that big a fan of this change. I know that they could have been they were annoying, for sure. They were annoying and they were scary. But now I feel like they've nerfed them to being sort of like a non-entity, which I think is kind of bad. One change in this section that I do really, really like, actually, is the nerf to skeletal remains and lumbering creations with bone shrapnel. So this is the thing that happens when you kill them. Before the nerf, this used to just be an AoE explosion whenever you kill those enemies, and it was just a pain in the ass, especially skeletal remains, because you'd be pulling like packs of, you know, 4 or 5 or more of these guys, and it was just an absolute nightmare. You'd have to be running around, kiting a lot. It was just a hassle, because if you got hit by bone shrapnel, I know certainly for me as a priest, I was doing my layer 8 run earlier in the week, and I had the Torment, where enemies did more physical damage, and bone shrapnel's physical damage, and that stacks up, increasing your physical damage taken. You know, if I wasn't kiting and running and doing weird stuff, I literally just get killed by these enemies when they died. Really annoying. Now what it does, it puts a big swirly on the ground that explodes after 2 seconds. So it gives you so much time to move out. So that's a really nice nerf. It's a massive nerf. It's very easy to play around it now. But I think that's good, because it was just really annoying before. I imagine it was even more annoying for melee players. Like something like a poor old enhancement shaman, a fairly squishy melee player. I imagine they did not have much fun with that before, so I think that's a good nerf. They've also nerfed a few abilities on some of the bosses, mostly the ones that are based around healing or making them sort of immune to damage. Just again, to make it a little less punishing for different specs that don't have interrupts or fast attacks, that sort of thing. And then one nice thing as well is that they have slightly, or not slightly, but significantly nerfed some of the Torments. The Torments that are spawning in extra enemies. So like the extra little dogs that would spawn and attack you, or the assassins that would spawn in. Those things have been massively nerfed, reduced by 50%, their health and damage reduced by 50%. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. Certainly those enemies could be quite scary. They've also made it so that it will no longer ambush players who've recently been in combat. So just making that a little less frustrating, you know, that it wouldn't be picking players off. you know, right after combat, and there's almost no counterplay. You know, these enemies just spawned in randomly and killed you. Okay, I've talked about the changes. I think in order to visualize the nerf, let me show you just the very end of this Torghast run. Let me show you me fighting the boss here. Okay, so check out this clip here. It's about a minute or two long. Okay, so this is the final boss on layer 8, max difficulty. I did this in the other wing yesterday, and it was actually pretty hard. Like 198 eye level, so we're well geared at this point. But check out all the crazy powers I have here. Death Harvester, Shadow Word Death damage going up. I have 220% more damage in Shadow Word Death. That hits right now for... It's for 9,000 damage, and then that goes up to about 30,000 damage. Go. It's like a scream lasts 4 seconds. Powered Fortitude reduces magic damage by 10%. Powered Fortitude 10% stamina. Dwarf Shadows weakens enemies. They take 20% more damage for 30 seconds. I've got the Pulsing Rot Hive, which is going to infect targets doing 1,000 damage every second for 6 seconds and then make a bunch of larvae. Watchful Lightfly doing 2,000 holy damage to enemies that strike me in melee. Finger Frozen Fury attacks with a chance of Firebolt of Magic doing 6,000 frost damage to enemies within 5 yards of your targets. I have 3 Obleron Spikes giving 9% crit. I have 3 Horrific Dictionary. This is the priest's best one, where every different word spell I cast increases my intellect man by 15% for 5 minutes. So I have 60% intellect from that. I've got 5 Obleron Winds for 15% haste. I've got a Blood Gorge Leeched. Spells have a very high chance to heal me 5% max health. Dwarf Shadows gives me 40% dodge for 20 seconds. This one is meh. When I shackle an undead enemy, Power Infusion comes back 200% faster. Power Overwhelming. Power Infusion makes Mind Blast. Instant cast and have no cooldown. Power Shield Absorption 5% max health. Mind Games debilitates enemies when it ends, interrupting and silencing them for 5 seconds. And while silenced, they take 100% more damage and then 15% max health. Let's see how this goes. Unfortunately, we didn't get the potion off of the dude. So I guess we want to start off with this Mind Games thingy and see how that is going to work out. Here we go. Let's blast this guy. He's actually doing some damage. I'll just pop my defensive to be safe here. Where we basically get Leech. Oh yeah, this guy does go incorporeal. Well, let's silence him with the Mind Games. See how that works. Might have to kick him again. Yeah, we'll kick that one. And he's dead. Okay, well, there you go. Right, well, yeah, slightly nerfed. Slightly nerfed. Yeah, needless to say, I think that clip really illustrated it well, right? Just with not only the massive nerfs to the basic health and basic damage of these enemies, but also just giving you so many more powers as you go through, and giving you more powerful powers as you go through as well. On top of, let's be fair as well, getting more item level as we do more raids, more dungeons, whatever. As we get our great vault rewards, especially every week with really good items in them. Yeah, these weekly runs, these wings, are now, I'll be honest, exceptionally easy. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I do see the good side of this, which is that, you know, for a casual player especially, or even any player on an alt, you know, the layer 8 at the previous difficulty, that was a massive wall. And if you haven't been keeping up with this from the start, you know, it would have taken you so long to catch back up with players and to make your legendaries, and that was frustrating. I think the good thing about this is now you can go into these weekly Torghast runs. They're going to be very quick. I did this one in 20 minutes, and I was going relatively slow. I think you could do it in 15 minutes very easily. I think you probably do it in 10 minutes if you're going fast. So yeah, you knock these out, and you're going to be making cool legendaries a lot faster. Which is good, right? You know, making more legendaries, why the hell not? Awesome. Get to try out different legendaries and different content. You're not really stressing about getting the Soul Ash. It's very easy to get, even on an alt, even if you are a casual player. Awesome. The bad side is that, well, you know, super easy content isn't all that interesting for a lot of people, you know, and there's a lot of cool stuff in Torghast. There's cool mechanics, like the zone is cool, the enemy design is cool, it's really interesting. You can do it as a group, that's interesting. But if it's really easy, there's just not much there to hook you. So for me right now, I think I can accept this weekly stuff being easy. That makes sense to me. I'm fine with that. The big question for me is the twisting corridors. It's been the big question since I first saw Torghast on the beta. Are the twisting corridors going to deliver that challenge, right? Because the twisting corridors is purely optional and it's going to give you cool cosmetic rewards. So it can be challenging. Think about the Mage Tower in Legion. It's supposed to be very, very difficult when it first comes out. It's supposed to be really hard. Will the twisting corridors deliver on that? Heck, they could even add multiple difficulties to the twisting corridors, right? The idea of it, at least when it was last on the beta, was that it was a 16 floor run, essentially putting 3 of these weekly runs together into one in a random order, which is cool. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Will it deliver a challenge? Hopefully, like I said, I am hoping for multiple difficulties. And I'm hoping for the higher difficulties especially to be really damn hard. Something for people to aspire to really work towards. If you're super try hard, then you could do them really early by min-maxing everything, and it's going to be exceptionally hard. If you're, more normal, then you can take a bit more time, get a bit more gear, and you will be able to take them down eventually, but they will still be a challenge. It's going to take a bit of work. And I think that would be cool because that will really incentivize, playing with your groups, really thinking about your powers, the strategies, and appreciating the stuff in Torghast. Because, yeah, these weekly runs, they're already now super easy. It's just something you blast through and you're done with. Or once you've made your legendaries, you're like, yeah, there's really no point in going back. The content is so easy. It's just, nah. So I won't bother. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think, though. I know a lot of people have been loving Torghast so far. And yeah, I'm curious to know what you think. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.